Challenge accepted. Here's how to make this sick armored core layout as if you're in the cockpit of the mech itself using a bunch of free tools in OBS here, including my own shader I built just for you. Let's jump in. You'll need a few things for this video. You'll need Exceldro's source clone plugin. You'll need Exceldro's fork of the OBS shader filter plugin, or if you don't have the original still working. You'll need StreamFX, which you can get with the free FX fork here in the OBS forums, since StreamFX is no longer able to be obtained freely. And then you'll need my layouts linked in the description below, as well as my own RGB separation filter. It's a shader that goes with the shader filter plugin that I built for this video, which will also be linked in the description. Install those, relaunch OBS, and you're ready to rock. So I've got a scene going here with some Armored Core gameplay just to simulate as if we were playing the game. We'll go ahead and make everything a little bit bigger. My sizing's kind of out of whack here. So first and foremost, we of course want to add our camera to the scene. So I'm going to add the scene because I have a nested scene for my camera here. And I'm going to crop it to roughly 4:3. Probably fine, and just start kind of positioning it in our scene here where we want it to go. I'm gonna lock my background sources, and then we're gonna drag in the layout. You'll need some way to get your chat in event list sources and things like that if you want that as well. We're gonna start with the webcam, so it's just a PNG file. I'll go ahead and just drag it in. You won't be able to do that if OBS is running as admin for you. You'll have to manually add the source. But you can see here we have our lovely little overlay here, and we just wanna resize our camera to fit within that. So I'm gonna lock the webcam PNG for now, and just focus on resizing my camera underneath it so that the bar, get it trimmed up, fit a little bit better. You're gonna be able to see a little bit better than I can with my scaling kind of set funky. But that's about how you want your webcam and your layout to go. I'm gonna go ahead and lock the webcam as well, and we are going to go ahead and nest these into their own scene. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy them. I'm gonna make a new scene, webcam layout. I'm gonna paste them in here. And then I'm gonna hide these two and add that scene nested here. All right, now we're gonna start moving it in space. Now, I do recommend probably setting all of these up individually so you can get the angles done right, but for the sake of time, we're gonna go ahead and start moving this around. So we have our webcam and our overlay. Our camera is on top in the paste, so we just move that below. And we want to start moving it in 3D space and applying our shaders. So I'm gonna go ahead and filter on the scene. We're gonna add a 3D transform. This is what we pull from the StreamFX plugin. And we're gonna use the corner pin method and just kind of fit it in to look a little bit sci-fi here. So we gotta, really push in our corners, bring it down a little bit. We just want to look like it's projected into 3D space. Top right, maybe bring it out a little bit. Bring that up a little bit, and we just want to look like the plane is kind of angled inward, like all those shots from like Iron Man being in his suit or Titanfall or whatever. Just give it a little bit of a skew here. And then we will kind of shift it over a little bit. Or maybe we will just move these sources themselves over a little bit here. That seems like the right call. There we go. That way we're not blocking the normal UI too much. All right, so that's all fine and dandy. We've projected into 3D space, but we don't really have that kind of sci-fi hologram effect. So first we're gonna lower the opacity. I'm gonna add a new color correction filter. This is just a built-in filter, and we are just gonna lower that opacity a little bit. So we're still clearly visible, but you see the stuff through the game. We're already making progress, but I wanna utilize that RGB delay effect that I built up. So I'm gonna show you how to do that. We're gonna take our camera source, and we are going to add some source clones of that camera. So I'm going to add source clone 1, and that's going to be the red channel. Clone type source, and then we're going to right click our original one, transform, copy transform, right click the red channel, transform, paste transform, and then we're going to do it again. So we're going to add new source clone. We're going to call this G for the green channel. We're going to choose our camera source, not our chat source. Camera source, okay. Right click, transform, paste transform. Then we're gonna do it again for the blue channel. So B, source, our camera, okay, transform, paste transform. We're gonna drag all of these below our webcam overlay. Everything should look normal for now, but now we're gonna go into each of these filter sections and go to user defined shader. This is the Exceldro shader filter plugin. Load shader from file and find my RGB visibility shader that I provided. And we're going to do this on each one. So we're going to Go in here. This is modifying the gamma shift plugin so it looks a little different. We're going to go in and just drag for the one that's green, we're going to drag down red and blue. For the one that's blue, we're going to copy filters from the first one, paste it on these two. I'm going to go here for blue, drag up R, or actually just drag up blue, bring down red and green, and then for the one that's red, paste filters, drag down green, bring up blue. And then we're going to select all three of these. We're going to right click, go to blending mode and add, and it's going to add them together. Okay, selecting that on all three does not work, so you got to do one at a time. So just change all of their blending modes to add, and they will add up to the sum total of red, green, and blue and look back like your normal camera view, which is fine. You got your normal camera below here. It gets darker if you don't have that original one there. And now what we're going to do is we're going to start delaying each of these channels, because right now they just exist as they normally do. But if we go in here for, say, the red channel and we add a render delay, set it to like 250 milliseconds. Now when we start moving, that red channel's separate. Same here with the blue channel. We're going to add a render delay. We're going to do 400 milliseconds, and then come in here to the green channel, add a render delay. We're going to do like 180 milliseconds. And as we start moving, you get that RGB separation that looks kind of hologrammy. I can go ahead and record this clip as an example so we can punch in on it. Whoa, dude, whoa. Now, if you set the bottom layer to not be add blending mode and just normal, it's darker, but the colors are a bit more visible. So then you got to figure out, okay, do I want to add some sort of color grading to bring them all up, which we could theoretically do. If we go in and play with the filter here, this is the red channel, we could brighten that back up a bit. So let's say 1.25 on each of those for their respective gammas. That might work. And obviously you want to play around with the timings for your delays for whatever looks best to you. Okay, that actually looks a lot better. It's mostly bright like it was supposed to be, and you still see all three colors separate here. But you're not going to be moving your face that much. So it's for a face cam, it's mostly going to be a subtle thing. If you're doing like video art or glitch art, which is what I originally built this filter for, based on this LGR video about a camera that has this trippy RGB separation on the CCD sensor. That's what I built the shader for. For that, you can do extreme stuff with it. But for just a face cam, it's a little bit of a subtle effect. And now you go back to your main scene here, we have the transparency and we have that separation, and we're already looking kind of hologrammy. And we can go back into our webcam layout frame here and maybe add another, actually we could probably mess with this color correction node and increase like the brightness a bit. We don't want to mess with that too much contrast. There we go. Yeah, crank up that contrast. And maybe gamma just a little bit to bring that brightness back. But you still see all three of the colors very, very well. We could even crank up saturation just a little. There we go. Now we're talking. And then we're gonna bring opacity down a little bit more now that we're so bright and saturated. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. All right, now we wanna add a little bit of scanline effect. So we're gonna go back to filters on our main nested scene here. We're gonna add a new user-defined shader. Keep in mind, shaders start stacking up in terms of like impact, so you got to be careful. We're going to load shader text, and there's a bunch of built-in ones already shipped with this, and so we want the scanline effect. And by default it looks terrible. It looks just absolutely garbage, but we can come in here, we can adjust the angle. We want it to be mostly horizontal, but since we are angled a bit, maybe we angle it just a little bit, and then we can turn on animation, and we want to change the speed really slow. And we want to change the period, which is how many scan lines you have, to be really, really small. So we want to really like resize this, really crank down that slider. There we go. And then we can play with the angle a little bit more. We just want it to be ever so slightly off center. There we go. And now we may actually want to move this up and put this above the color correction Yeah, that looks a lot better. That way it has the opacity changes, so we can go ahead and rename this shader to scan lines. Now there are other shaders you could mess with if you really want to go in on the hologram effect. Just keep in mind it's going to be harder to compress, it's going to use up a lot of resources to run, but if we add another one, there's a couple VHS shaders that I've had Exceldro add to the collection by my request from the shader toy site. So there's VHS and VCR. If we do VCR, it doesn't really respect your alpha transparency, so that one doesn't really work, but the VHS one should. If we pull that one in here, yeah. But you can see here, it adds a ton of noise. So you really want to like crank down your wave size, slow down the offset intensity, slow down the noise intensity. And then it has its own little RGB wave, but it just kind of shifts the channel side to side, which is a cool effect. But then you probably want to go back into our nested scene and turn off these, because I think the separation that's built in is already fine. But I think while it's a cool effect, again, for plenty of purposes, it's not the look I want for the hologram. I much prefer where the core RGB channels are together, but they just kind of get ever so slightly separated here with this. Now you can also add a little bit of aberration to the webcam frame. So we'll call this, I'm pretty sure there's a shader for this. Yeah, chromatic aberration. That's another one I had him import. And you really got to play around here because you can see it just totally moved everything. If you do it like this, then you have to put in some work to kind of transform it back. So we'll put 3D transform on, and then we gotta realign it a bit with our source here, which is fine. It's also hard to do when you don't have very obvious corners on a couple corners. It's something a little like that if you want the effect to also be on the webcam frame, but that's probably a lot of extra work and like processing power for something that you don't need to do. I think it looks pretty convincing as is. You can maybe turn down the brightness of it, but I think it looks pretty good. And then as you move and talk in your game, I maybe added a little too much delay for this effect just to kind of show it here, but I think it's pretty solid. Now, we of course can do all this all over again for your chat and your events list. I have provided overlays for both of those. So we have events list, which is just these little corners here. All right, so I've built a couple stream elements overlays to kind of fit the theme here with regards to sizing. So we have chat box kind of resized a little small to fit, and then we have an event list as well. So I'm gonna copy those overlay URLs for browser sources. We're gonna add a new browser source. This will be event lists AC6. Paste it in there. I did 1440p for this because I do 4K stuff, and that was as high as you could get. Click OK. We're gonna scale it to fit with the area scaling filter. I'm just gonna kind of move it and size it to fit within the overlay. Something a little like that, and again, we're gonna nest those into a new scene. Paste them, we're gonna hide the originals. Add that scene back as a source, and obviously you could do that without, like you could just make them in a new scene to begin with, but you kind of want to see where they're gonna position with everything. And we're gonna do something very similar. In fact, we could right click, filters, and copy, honestly, all of these. So we could just copy all these filters from one to the other just to have a starting place. So come back to our event layout. Paste filters, and then kind of, you may not want to position it quite like that. Then we can come mess with the 3D transform. Where do we want it to be? Maybe stretched out a little bit further than our webcam a bit, because it is a bit of a UI element. That's looking pretty good. Maybe we don't want to knock the opacity down quite as much. Actually, we're going to set all these to defaults for the color correction. Yeah, that's a lot darker. So then we bring down the opacity here. Get something a little like that. And we could do like the whole RGB separation thing from our other thing, but it's not really worth it since it's only going to move whenever it updates. Or we could do the little VHS filter on that. Maybe turn down the color offset so it's just ever so slightly jittering there. I think that works. And then we want to do one more with the chat. So we're going to make a new scene. Again, we're going to drag on our chat overlay, and I'm going to add in my browser source from Stream Elements for the chat. Just resize it to fit within those bars there. I'm going to move both of these over just a tad like we have everything else, and once again, we're going to finally add that scene. Paste filters. Come back into filters, reset color correction, and just turn down that opacity a bit. We want to maybe leave that one a little bit more opaque, since we do want it to be a little bit more legible. And we can bring over our 3D transform a bit more, probably about there. As we fill up chat, if you're worried about legibility, you can come into the scan lines. The floor customizes the minimum opacity. So we could bring it down to where it's just barely there. Now I'm feeling like the event layout is a little too invisible. So we'll bring that back up. It's looking pretty good. I'm digging it. We're gonna tweak the 3D transform a little bit. This you're gonna have to set up for yourself based on where you want things to be. But for the most part, that's it. I dig it. And lastly, if we want to set up an effect to have it kind of dissolve or have you just kind of disintegrate into glitches when you die, we have that option too. We'll need to set up a couple more filters with the shaders. So I'm going to go to filters on the webcam, and we're going to use this VHS shader. We are going to absolutely destroy it. I'm going to see if there's another one. We might use this one. Hold on. Let's see. I'm going to use either this glitch analog shader or the normal VHS shader I was showing before. And we are going to add a couple color correction filters. So this is going to be opacity less. And we're going to set opacity to like there. And then one more color correction filter, invisible. And we're going to set opacity all the way to 0. And now we're going to take these three, one at a time, I guess. Copy to our chat and events lists if you want them there. But we're just going to do it on the webcam for now. And then we're going to turn all three of these off. So what we will have... Ew, I just realized... this analog glitch effect does not show the gameplay beneath, so that's not going to work. There we go. Okay, you have to check apply to alpha layer on the VHS effect. Cool, that's all we need. All right, so we're going to hide all three of these filters. And we're going to set up a multi-action in our Stream Deck or your other kind of hotkey setup. You basically just want 3 steps with a delay. So we're going to create a new multi-action. Actually, no, we're not going to do a multi-action. We're going to do a multi-action toggle. So then we'll come up to the multi-action switch. And the Stream Deck software decided it did not want to do that. All right, so with our multi-action switch, we're going to go in. And for step 1, we're going to come over here to OBS. And we're just going to add in 3 filters. And then we're also going to add some delays between them. So we're going to set one there and one there. So now, the first filter, we want to choose our webcam layout. And our filter is the VHS filter. We're going to turn that on, 350 milliseconds. And then we're going to turn on the opacity less filter. Then we're going to wait another 450 milliseconds, and then we're going to make our source just completely invisible with the other one. But you could just completely hide the source at that point, but I like the 3-step procedure. And then for multi-action 2, we're going to do the same thing with the filters, but with no delay. So we're going to scroll down to OBS. Filter, 1, 2, 3. And we're just going to hide all of those filters. Okay, now we have a button set up. So now anytime I explode in the game or whatever, I can just hit this one button on my Stream Deck. Oh no! I need to, and then I can hit it again to come back. Need to increase the delay a bit here. So, say 500 milliseconds for the first one and 850 for the second. Now, there are plugins you could set up to like drag the opacity slider down over time or something, but we don't need to worry about that. All right, multi-action switch. Oh no, I'm dying. I exploded, no. You can play around with timings, but you get the idea. I think it works. And to take your streams to the next level, you want our backing track stream music. It's royalty-free, stream safe, video safe. We've got metal, we've got rock, we've got sleep wave, chill wave, we've got chip rock coming just around the corner. Seriously high quality stuff. We even collaborated with Evo for the Mortal Kombat track that we debuted early in August. Awesome stuff. Backingtrack.gg, free downloads, free streaming. Rock out your stream today. And that's it. Lots of effects stacked together, lots of trial and error to get to this point, but I think the results are really pretty sick. And you can tweak it to go whichever direction you want, to put it wherever you want. And if you really want that kind of anime like Gundam feel, it works really well with 2D representations of yourself for VTubing, like the original poster that I kind of copied here showed off. So this is how you do it. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to hit the like button. Go check out this video over on screen on more OBS plugins to enhance your OBS installation. And remember to be kind, rewind.